Hello everyone, Yubel Master, aka 38 the Master One here, bringing you another video for the Yubel community, with my very first IRL deck profile. Now, this is the first time that I've brought a Yubel deck to locals since 2016, which is over 7 years ago, and I must say it was a pretty fun experience, and in fact one of my games was even recorded, so I'll definitely be talking more about my experience with this deck in locals, but that'll be in the second half of this video, so do stay tuned. But for now, let's get right into the deck profile. This here is a Destiny Hero Yubel deck that I've recently cooked up. The aim of this deck is to get Yubel in the grave using Fusion Destiny, or Foolish Burial, then make use of the synergy with Destroy Phoenix Enforcer to evolve Yubel into the second and third forms, while also controlling the game using Destiny Hero cards. This deck was just a fun experiment that I tried as a way to play Yubel before the support comes out in Phantom Nightmare. So without further ado, let's get into the cards. Starting off with the main deck, we have Yubel and the two other forms, Terra Incarnate and the Ultimate Nightmare. One of each, no need for any more bricks. And next up, I'll explain the Destiny Hero engine. So of course we have 3 Fusion Destiny, as well as the Foolish Burial. These are all the ways we can get Yubel into the graveyard. And as for the Destiny Heroes, we have 2 Malicious, and 1 Denier, and 1 Celestial, as well as 2 Plasmas. I did used to run Dasher instead of the second Plasma, but then I realized that I never really needed Dasher's effect because most of the things can be normal summoned anyway, and Plasma serves the same purpose of being a level 5 or higher Destiny Hero monster needed to summon Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. But it's less of a brick than Dasher because drawing it means that I don't need to search it with Cross Crusader. Because the complicated thing about this deck is that all of the summon limitations can really change the way you do your combo lines. For example, with Fusion Destiny, you're locked into summoning Dark Hero monsters, which means that you have to link summon generic cards that you want to have on the field before you actually activate Fusion Destiny. Not only that, but if you want to use Cross Crusader's effect, you cannot special summon any monsters apart from hero monsters the turn you activate it. So this means that hard drawing Plasma instead of searching it with Cross Crusader means that your plays are a lot less restricted. So for example, with Malicious and Denier, you can make a lot more generic link plays instead of just relying on Cross Crusader. I also added 1 Pot of Acquisitiveness to aid with the grind game and recycle the Malicious and the Celestial for any games that go on for longer than 2 turns. But after playing this deck at locals, I definitely want to cut it because games don't really last long with this deck, and even if they do, you're unlikely to see the one-off Pot of Acquisitiveness. So yeah. Anyway, next up we have the Predaplant Engine with 3 Orphus Scorpio and 2 Darlingtonia Cobra, as well as 3 Lone Fires to summon the Scorpio. Now all of these cards are for the sole purpose of searching out Fusion Destiny. So with this deck you can basically get out Fusion Destiny turn 1 pretty consistently. Next up we have cards that summon Yubel from the grave. We have 3 Limit Reverse, a classic way to get out Yubel and guarantees a transition into the second form. You can chain it to a Destruction or a Banish on the trap card to summon Yubel, and then when it leaves the field, it destroys Yubel, triggering the effect of Yubel to bring out the second form. Or you can activate it during your opponent's end phase, summon Yubel with it, then just put Yubel to defense when it's your turn, and Limit Reverse will destroy Yubel, bring out the second form again. As for other ways to summon Yubel, we also have 3 Dark Beckoning Beast, as well as 3 Opening the Spirit Gates. They search each other, and with Opening the Spirit Gates, once per turn you can discard a card to summon a Fiend-type monster with 0 attack and defense from the grave. And additionally, we have the 10th card to summon Yubel, being Monster Reborn. Moving on. Finally, we have the non-engine cards with 1 Called by the Grave, because Ash Blossom actually just ends our turn straight up, which is pretty sad, and it actually happened to me a few times at locals. But with only 7 slots left from here, I decided to run 2 Infinite Opponents, as well as 2 Triple Tactics Talent, because they are the best generic staples in my opinion, and I recently pulled them in Rarity Collection. Anyway, for the last 3 slots, we have Pot of Prosperity. This is supposed to be 3 Pot of Prosperities, but unfortunately the third one didn't arrive in the mail on time, so I just had to settle for 2 on the day. So instead I replaced it with a random other card that I pulled from Rarity Collection just to fill the space. So yeah, this Ghost Bell right here should be a 3rd Prosperity, but this is what we had on the day for locals, which is pretty good, especially because the Prosperities did just add enough consistency to the deck where I never really bricked. Since most of the time with Pot of Prosperity, I searched for the Fusion Destiny to start my turn. So yeah, that's the main deck done. And next up, we're moving on to the extra deck. So right here, we have 1 Destroy Phoenix Enforcer and 1 Dangerous. These are the fusions you summon with Fusion Destiny. You only really need 2 because realistically you're never going to resolve Fusion Destiny 3 times in one game. And as for more hero stuff, we have 1 Cross Crusader, a very good card to either search Plasma or summon Denier or DP from the grave. We also have Wonder Driver to recycle Fusion Destiny so that you don't have to search it. Since the Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra is only once per duel, this is kind of necessary to reuse Fusion Destiny consistently. So the game plan with these cards is to first summon Dangerous using 1 Destiny hero and 1 Dark Monster, the Dark Monster being Yubel. This card alone sets up your graveyard, and sometimes you can go into Cross Crusader using the Malicious that you just sent to search for a Destiny hero Plasma, and then using the bodies you have on field to summon it to lock down your opponent's monster effects. Then the turn after that, you try and summon DPE using Malicious plus Denier to link summon into Wonder Driver, and then summon Malicious a second time into the Wonder Driver link arrow, and get back your Fusion Destiny to summon DPE, usually using Celestial and the second Plasma from your deck as fusion materials. So yeah, onto the other extra deck monsters. We have Salamangreat Almiraj. This card is pretty useful, not only to bridge into SP Little Knight, but you also sometimes need it when you're using Opening the Spirit Gates, because with Opening the Spirit Gates, you need something in grave to actually resolve and use the effect. For example, if you have Opening and 2 Dark Beckoning Beasts on your field, but with nothing in your graveyard, you have to link off one of the Dark Beckoning Beasts into Almiraj. So now there's something in your grave for you to activate, and because it doesn't target, you can discard Yubel and summon Yubel on resolution. So you can theoretically do this turn 1, and if you have Fusion Destiny, you can go straight into DPE and pop your own Yubel with it to summon Terra Incarnate, just like this. Then Terra Incarnate blows up the field, including the Almiraj, just like that, and then DPE will just come back during the standby phase. And this is a pretty decent board because you can pop something and or pop your own Terra. So Almiraj did come up a lot, especially to bridge into the SP Little Knight to get that banish effect. On to the next 2 cards, which is IP Masquerena as well as SP Little Knight. We sometimes summon IP on turn 1 to set up SP on the opponent's turn. Usually you can get 3 bodies on the field, for example 2 Dark Beckoning Beasts and a Malicious. You can just link off into IP Masquerena, then link off the 3rd card and IP on your opponent's turn to summon SP for hopefully enough interruptions to stop their turn. So next up we have Muckracker. This is here as another way to summon Yubel from the graveyard, but because of the Dark Hero lock from Fusion Destiny, you more often go into this instead. So next up we have the Dark Charmer Gloomy. I never summon this on the day, but our deck is full of darks, so we can summon it. Next up we have Pit Knight Early and Pit Knight Philly. Pit Knight Early did come up a few times. It synergizes pretty well with Terra Incarnate because the end phase destruction doesn't matter for Early, as it just brings itself back during the same end phase. And same with Philly, but Philly brings herself back during the standby phase. So these 2 cards were definitely pretty good. So we also have Fortune Tune. These are here because of the Predaplant Engine. These two here are level 3, so usually when you're going second, you just overlay these two and then attack and then just go into Zeus. And this is pretty much the best way to clear boards, as long as they don't negate the Predaplant effect. But this never came up because more often than not, I was summoning 2 Dark Beckoning Beasts as my normal summon that turn and trying to clear the board from here. So when you summon 2 Dark Beckoning Beasts, you would usually just go into Almiraj and then link off these 2 into SP Little Knight. And then banish something, and then banish something else if they try to respond. And then continue your plays from there. Maybe activate another Fusion Destiny from your hand after this, and try and clear the board from there. And this way you still have a battle phase, as opposed to the Zeus route where you have to sacrifice your battle phase. So yeah, these are pretty good. But we still have the Zeus here just in case we need it. So I also have 1 Super Star Slayer, Typhon Sky Crisis, which I think it did actually come up 1 time on the day. And since a lot of the cards have 0 attack, mostly you aren't sacrificing anything useful to actually summon it. And finally, we have Underworld Goddess. This is to out some kind of Towers monster. You usually go into this with the Dark Charmer, summoning something from their grave, and then all you need is just 1 Malicious and you have enough material to summon it using one of your opponent's monsters. Again, this never came up, but we have lots of extra deck space, so we might as well put in something that covers all situations. So yeah, that's my Destiny Hero deck profile. Next up, I will be talking about my experience with it at locals, but for now, what did you guys think of it? If you are liking the video so far, there is more to come. But why don't you go down there and hit the like button and the subscribe button down below. And let me know if you have any tips to improve the deck. I want to hear it. So be sure to leave a comment as well, because I do want to keep on experimenting with Yubel before the support comes out, with different archetypes and stuff, combining it with different decks. As for my locals experience with this deck, we do have a small scene where I live, and there were about 8 people on the day, and we played 4 rounds in total. I only won 1 out of 4 of my games, unfortunately, so this deck definitely did struggle. But as for the rounds, round 1 was versus Mathmech. In game 1, we went second, and I managed to set up Plasma, but he outed it with a spell card and then just proceeded to OTK me from there. In game 2, it ended up being a pretty long grind game because he ended up bricking. And also, for some reason, turn 1 when I was doing my combo, he DD crowed my Yubel. I'm not sure why. I guess he didn't know what Yubel does, so he got scared and just banished it just in case. But it didn't really affect my plays. It did stop me from summoning Yubel for the rest of the game, which I was kind of sad about, but I still did Destiny Hero stuff. So yeah, in game 2, I managed to survive by setting up IP turn 1 into SP Little Knight on his turn and disrupting his board. Because of that, he didn't have enough to OTK me this time, and we ended up going into this weird grind game with SP Little Knight just constantly interrupting him every turn. And that caused us to eventually just go into time. And I panicked when time was called, and I went straight to battle phase, and I ended up misplaying because he actually had this card in his graveyard that he can banish whenever a link monster battles to make the opponent's monster 0 attack. So I totally threw a potential draw here into a definite loss for me, because I actually had a Called by the Grave set, but because the card banishes for cost, I had missed my timing to activate it, and so he turned my monsters to 0 attack, and I couldn't attack over his monsters and deal damage to win by time. So it ended up being a loss for me instead of what could have been a draw. As for round 2, this game was on stream versus a young Crystal Beast player who's a regular at locals. And this ended up being the only game that I actually won that day. I think I'll put some footage of the duel in the background, courtesy of Zephyr Wargames. Now, I don't really need to go into too much detail about round 2, since you can watch it yourselves on the Zephyr Wargames channel after you've watched this video. I will leave the link in the description down below for you guys. But yeah, it was a fun duel. Definitely my favorite one of the day. I do want to point out that at the end of Game 3, I realized when watching back that I made a slightly illegal play by summoning SP Little Knight when I should have been under the Fusion Destiny lock of only summoning Dark Heroes. So yeah, I totally forgot about that, but that's because I was spending way too much time thinking that turn, and I just completely forgot that I activated Fusion Destiny near the beginning. So yeah, sorry about that, but I still think I would without SP anyway, because I had a pretty ridiculous board and I cleared a lot of his stuff that he tried to set up with Crystal Beasts. So anyway, round 3 was versus a branded Chimera player who had just come back from a 6th place win at an OTS championship event, which was last week. And yeah, I got absolutely destroyed by this deck. Game 1, I do my stuff, but don't really have enough resources to summon Plasma. So he just proceeds to OTK me, because all I have is just a Dangerous and the Predaplant stuff. So he summons this Illusion Beast fusion card that can attack monsters up to the number of materials that you use for it. So he just attacked me 3 times per game over my monster. And game 2, I summon Scorpio. It gets Ash Blossomed, so I just end my turn with a set limit reverse, because I can't do anything else. And he just OTKs me exactly the same way. Yeah, this is exactly what happens when a tier 2 deck like Branded Chimera plays against a tier 6 deck like Destiny Hero Yubel. So that was a quick 2-0 sweep. Round 4 was versus Dark Worlds, which surprisingly wasn't too hard of a matchup for me. I mean, I still lost, but I did put up a decent fight because the games were lasting more than 2 turns. So in the first game, I did manage to get out Terra Incarnate at one point by chaining my Limit Reverse to his Grapha's Destruction effect, and I even managed to clear his board the next turn by baiting out the Fusion Negate effect and using talents to steal a monster, then going into battle phase and then attacking over 1 or 2 things, and then linking off the monster that I stole in main phase 2 to clear even more things with SP Little Knight. I mean, SP Little Knight really was the MVP of the deck, so I guess that's £90 well spent, I suppose. That being said, although the games did last longer than 1 turn, Dark World just has way too much gas. And my deck can easily run out of gas once I've used like all of my Malicious and all of my Denier like once per duel effects. So I just run out of resources in the grave to link summon and stuff. But Dark World just does not run out of resources. They just keep on bouncing stuff back to their hand, fusion summoning. Their fusion card just returns itself to the hand for free. Like, Dark World's a pretty nutty deck. So eventually he did end up overwhelming me with just Graphas, Rainbows, and Silvers. And game 2 went pretty much the same way, although I did have a cool moment of using that one Ghost Spell that was in there temporarily as a filler card to negate the Silver and save me from a huge hand rip, which even he was surprised about. Like, he had to read Ghost Spell and was like, his reaction was pretty funny. He was like, oh yeah, I guess that stops it, and just continued his plays. So yeah, the Dark World duel, the duel against the Dark World player was pretty fun because the games lasted a while, but I still lost both of the games anyway. So yeah, overall, I had 1 win and 3 losses, so this deck is definitely not great for competitive play, but I'm still pretty proud of the creative theory crafting work that I put into this deck. And I definitely had fun playing it. And by the way, this isn't my first time going to locals in 2023, because since I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In July 2023, I've actually been going to locals with other decks that aren't Yubel, such as Traptrix and Pearly, mainly for the purpose of like catching up with the 7 years of metagame that I've missed out on. Especially playing that simple Traptrix deck really helped me to relearn the game and get used to like what the meta is and what the best decks kind of do in general. That and all the people at my locals are really friendly and super supportive, especially Dale from Zephyr Wargames, who helped me get a lot of the cards I needed for all of my decks, including this one actually, through trades and stuff like that. So yeah, huge shout outs to everyone at my locals, and you can even watch me play using my Traptrix deck on the Zephyr Wargames channel, as well as the Yubel versus Crystal Beast match which I played with this deck. So definitely go do check that out. But for now, thank you all for watching my video, and I hope you all enjoyed me sharing my deck profile and my locals experience. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.